Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Welcome. How you doing? Fade to Black. That's right. Today is Thursday, August 14th, 2025. I am your host, Jimmy Church, closing out another amazing week here on Fade to Black. We're going to do that tonight. Monday night, Graham Nichols was here, inducing your own OBE. Tuesday night, Tony Rodriguez was here. It took 9 years to do that show. Wednesday night, last night, Joanne DiMaggio, Soulmate versus Cellmate. And tonight, are you ready? Helané Wahbeh is with us. And if you follow this show, and I know that you do, you know what my favorite subjects are. And tonight, it's all going to happen. I am very excited about this. And so just get ready. It's going to be a great conversation. I do have 5 major events coming up, all of them in 2026, because I've cleared the calendar for 2025 for the taping of my TV show, Beyond Belief. And we're doing that every month. So I've cleared the calendar. But next year, 2026, Conscious Life Expo comes up February 20th through the 23rd, 2026 at the LAX Hilton. After that, the Contact Modalities Expo in Delavan, Wisconsin. That is May 1st through the 3rd. After that, Contact in the Desert, May 28th through June 1st, 2026. Tickets on sale this Thanksgiving Day. Then I head over to the UK for the Monty Python Tour of Scotland. That is August 1st through the 9th. I come back from that, and then I head south to Peru for Peru and Easter Island with Brian Forrester. Been to Peru many times, but this is my first trip to Easter Island, and I consider this bucket list checked. Okay, now, before I bring Helané in here, I just want to let everybody know that, yes, we had a fire break out just a few miles from my home and this studio earlier today. It's under control. Now, from my front yard, it was right there cresting the mountain just a few miles from my house, and it looked pretty gnarly and a lot of smoke. But it is heading east away from me. You can still see it. But the reason why I'm bringing it up, I'm safe. Everybody knows I'm in Palmdale, and I started getting text today. It broke out at about 3. I was like, hey, man, yeah, what's going on? Why are you texting me? Are you okay? It's like, what do you mean? There's a fire. And so anyway, the jet aircraft, the firefighting jet aircraft, and the helicopters are stationed about 2 miles, 3 miles from me at Fox Field. And they are flying low and slow directly over my house, over to the fire. So it's loud. So if that happens tonight during the show, you know what's going on. All right. And that's why I'm bringing it up. Okay. So there you go. Tonight, Helané Wahbeh is with us. And we are going to discuss ourselves, her research projects. We're going to talk about the brain. We're going to talk about Noetic Sciences tonight, and of course, the IONS Discovery Lab. And we're going to do all of that. But she is the director of research at the Institute of Noetic Sciences and an adjunct assistant professor in the Department of Neurology at Oregon Health and Science University. She is clinically trained as a neuropathic physician and research trained with a Master of Clinical Research and 2 post-doctoral research fellowships. She has published on and spoken internationally about her studies on complementary and alternative medicine, mind-body medicine, extended human capacity, stress, post-traumatic stress disorder and their relationships to physiology, health, and healing. Now, she's especially known for her research around and the noetic approach to channeling, and we may dip our toes into that tonight as well. I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Helané Wahbeh. She's right there. Helané, how are you?
Hello, I'm great. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I wish we could start with your travel plans. That sounds incredible. The Peru trip and Scotland trip and all that. I'm an avid traveler, so that's really exciting.
Everybody that follows me knows how much I travel, and thank you for appreciating that. But here's what it kind of happened for me. My career got in the way, life got in the way, kids got in the way, all that stuff, right? And the things that I wanted to do, you can't. You've got other stuff that you have to deal with. But about 5 years ago, I backed up. Now I have a heavy conference schedule and all of that. But look, you know what we're going to talk about tonight, and we know what's going on out there and what we see in documentaries and films and maybe a horror movie or two growing up, right? Egypt and the pyramids and Stonehenge, pick something. And you never really get a chance to go and you see it in pictures. And I thought to myself, that's it. I'm done. I'm going. And I haven't stopped. I love it. And it's not only the sites, Helané, it's the cultures, it's the people, and it's mixing it up and breaking bread and hanging out. I enjoy that as much as I enjoy riding my Harley. There's something about meeting people and cultures from around the world. And so that's it. That's all I do now.
That's amazing. It absolutely shifts your worldview, right? Because, most people go about their day-to-day life. They have their, often very prescribed way of being and who they interact with. And, oh, this is just how life is. And then you step out of that, you go to a totally different culture, and it just completely blasts open your worldview. And I think we're going to be doing a bit of that tonight as we talk about some of these experiences, is blasting open people's maybe physicalist worldviews.
I talk about my traveling a lot, not to brag. Yeah, part of it's bragging. Yeah, man, I'm out there doing it. But part of it is I want everybody to get excited about maybe going and experiencing this stuff. And I had read a fact. I read it on the air a few months ago. Check this out. I don't know if you knew this. 99, I vetted this, by the way. 99% of USA passport holders have never left the country.
Oh, wow.
Right? They go and get a passport, and then they're right back to doing their thing, right? They get the passport, maybe but 99%.
Yes.
Isn't that crazy? Use that thing, man. Get it stamped.
Absolutely. Hey. Yes. I was just doing some traveling myself in Europe. There was a Science of Consciousness conference in Barcelona, which was pretty amazing. And then the Parapsychological Association conference in Freiburg, Germany, and then spent some time in Switzerland. I actually brought my 12-year-old son, which was amazing. Oh, yeah. And it was, such an incredible educational experience to see how other people live in other parts of the world. I think personally, it should be mandatory that you leave your country and go elsewhere. And lots of cultures
buy the ticket for you. Yeah, we'll buy the ticket for you. You got to go.
Yeah,
you've got to go. We've got so much to discuss tonight, but this is just as important too, I think.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. We here in the United States, and I'm not saying this to be negative because I love my country, but I've got a helicopter going really low over this fire's just, it's right here. Anyway, we live in a bubble, and here in the United States, we think we are all there is. That's the truth. We are so blinded by the media and everything that's it. We are the center of the known universe, and the rest of the world is messed up, and it's this and that. If you go out there to any country and experience it, you will find that everybody's the same. They're just like, they have the same smiles, the same appreciation of food, friendship, family, life, dreams. They get pissed off about the same things that we do. And, there may be a language barrier, but that's about it. And you don't know that until you go. And then you come back and the world just gets smaller.
Yes.
It's a fascinating thing. All right. We're going to start here. This is a question hopefully you have never been asked. All right?
Okay.
What is the most amazing invention the universe has brought us? Is it A, the brain, or B, coffee?
That seems like a trick question. Coffee's pretty incredible.
I know, isn't it? Though? Kind of a tie. It's kind of a tie. But the brain
is an incredible tool.
It's incredible. It's incredible,
it's
isn't it?
Amazing tool. Yes, absolutely agree.
Do you think it was an accident?
No. Well, what do you mean by that? I mean, do you think that it was an evolutionary process that created the brain, or do you think it was somehow guided and orchestrated in some way?
Okay, put your degrees to the side, because that is a great response. But that's where I'm going with it, is when you get into orthodox academia, and then you have some of the non-spiritualist, atheists, determined, skeptical crowd out there. I'm not going to name names, but you know who I'm talking about. Well, they will say, you know what? Lightning hit some amino acids on a crystal in a creek bed, and whoop, here we are. There's nothing special about this. I don't agree with that. The brain and us are too special to have it be an accident.
I would agree with that. I think it was somehow, I wouldn't say dictated, but intended is maybe a better word for it. There was a guided intention, if you will, for the orchestration of it.
Are you leaning on this on a spiritual side of that thought? It's difficult. I totally agree. But
yeah, I mean, you said put my degrees aside, right? So this is Helané as the person. I always talk about this. I put my scientist hat on, or I put my, Helané personal hat on. So this is Helané's personal hat, right? So I definitely lean much more towards kind of the idealist camp, this idea that consciousness is fundamental, that like the fundamental nature of reality is consciousness. And what is that? That's like the big question. And how does that interact with the brain, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of the manifestation of the brain, not from a pool of just amino acids, but obviously it was changed over time, that there was a conscious intentionality to that. And every step along the way was imbued with this consciousness. And then you'd say, well, what is the purpose of that? What motivates that? And I believe, again, Helané personally believes that the motivation is experience, just the incredible wide variety of experience. Maybe consciousness was this like static experience at some point and said, okay, I want to experience different things. And in order to do that, there needs to be some sort of separation, if you will. And that intentionality of wanting experience drove that evolution. How did that happen? I don't know. I can't really
It's
speak to
amazing,
that.
isn't it? It's crazy. And to just sit and have a conversation about these subjects that you and I are going to talk about, that something gave us the ability to ponder these things. And that to me is just crazy, just in of itself. But then you know what you throw in that makes it totally magical? Laughter.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. See, right.
Yeah.
That we to experience joy and emotion. And that's another component of what the brain and consciousness brings to the party. And that's just extraordinary. It's unbelievable that we can do these things.
Yes, and you keep bringing the brain into it, and maybe we'll dive into this a little bit more, but in our field there's this whole body of literature around people experiencing those emotions or having those sensations, if you will, without a brain, when the brain's like completely offline, or even being declared clinically dead.
Mm-hmm.
And they're yet having experience of joy or bliss or connection, having interactions. And so, I think the brain is incredibly important for the human experience, but I think that, those emotions and that consciousness, I personally believe that it exists separate from the brain. And there's
That's my next question.
That's a lot of growing evidence around that too.
Yeah, and you just presented that evidence by reading my mind. That was pretty cool. Well,
Yeah.
because that's an important point. One of my frustrations, and I think that so many, not in our community, but outside of our community, are frustrated with the narrow view of the intelligence side of the world when it comes to discussing consciousness. There's a line in the sand, and they back up and they don't want to talk about it. And that consciousness is just a chemical reaction. It's a physical component that arises from when cells start to divide. And it's like, wait a minute here. You don't even want to consider the possibility of of consciousness being non-physical. And it's strange how that gets shut down. I think that is slowly starting to change. What do you think?
Yes, I agree. And, this is why I started off with this worldview thing with the travel, because I think it's very related. When you have a particular worldview that you're totally invested in, and someone presents you with evidence to the contrary, you can just dismiss that and say that it's impossible, which is kind of where we're at now, right? So the mainstream is in this physicalist dominant paradigm, which is all that exists is the physical, however you want to describe that, right? So whenever they're presented with information that there is more than the physical, that our consciousness exists beyond our physical brain, beyond our bodies, like, oh, well, that's impossible. So there must be some fraud or some trickery or some other way to explain that, because they have to keep putting things in the bucket that they understand. And there's some
but then they try to convince us about entanglement, and entanglement is the craziest idea that you can throw at us, but yet they don't believe in ghosts.
Right. But, I would argue that there's, some of those diehard physicalists may not be totally bought into entanglement yet, so even though it's been shown in the lab over and over again with, so many different objects, even like small diamonds now, they're saying, and larger molecules, even quasars, like MIT showed that light from billion-year-old quasars were entangled somehow. And yet, some people aren't totally bought into that yet. the diehard physicalist, or it's like, that's not in my realm. I'm going to stay over here in my silo and just think about what I'm doing.
One of my favorite quotes, and I don't body shame or mind shame anybody. No, that's not true. I do all the time, but I don't do it intentionally to be negative. But one of my favorite quotes to point this out is from Sean Carroll, who is a brilliant mind, and I like him a lot. And as far as a physicist goes and the way he communicates, it's really well done. But in one of his AMAs last year, the question comes up. And it was, here it is, right? The C word. So what is consciousness, right? And Sean Carroll, I do a really good Sean Carroll impression, by the way. So I'll do it now. Sean Carroll says, I don't have time to think about or wonder about something I can't see. I don't waste my time with that.
All right.
And that's his answer. It's exactly what you're saying right there, isn't it? It's absolutely. If they can't put it in the lab, they can't measure it, they can't quantify it, they can't throw some testing at it. It's a waste of time.
Yeah,
it's imagination.
I know. We at IONS, will often talk about little c consciousness and big C consciousness. So, little c is kind of what the neurologists and neuroscientists are talking about. Are you awake? Are you not awake? Kind of what's happening in that realm of awareness, conscious awareness. But to me, that's different than big C consciousness, which is kind of what I was speaking to, this idealistic philosophy that consciousness is kind of the ground of all being. And you can look at it in different ways, because I'm not saying the brain isn't important. The brain is important. It's an incredible tool, but I don't think that it's what generates our consciousness. But it is involved in this, whether I'm awake or not awake. But I want to say one more piece, though, because this is important. I think people are afraid. I think ultimately there is some level of fear around losing their way of knowing, their way of being, right? So if their worldview is totally shattered, what if that means they lose their job? Or, what does that mean for who I am and who I think myself to be? And when you extend it to non-local consciousness and the phenomenon that show up with that, like telepathy and mind over matter and all of these extrasensory perceptual phenomenon, that really scares a lot of people that could potentially be true. And so I'm really a proponent of just laying it all out on the table and having these conversations so that we can kind of work through that. And not that I want to make them swallow the believing pill, but at least move to a place that's more open and curious. It's like, okay, well, let's just see what's going on here and see if we can test that in some way.
Well, and that's, oh man, I feel like I'm kicking a dead horse. I preach this every day, but that's every big leap that we made in science and knowledge was from an individual that didn't give a crap. Right? That thought outside of the box and put their life on the line.
And often lost their life.
And often lost their lives. Yes. And we have lost sight of that. Think outside of the box, man. Just be a kid. Be a kid. Yeah. Let your imagination go and then see if you can figure this stuff out. It's so frustrating.
It is. And, there was a great paper that came out recently, and I'm not remembering the authors, but they basically looked at scientific results that were coming out, let's say, in the last, decade or 2 decades. And they looked at the trajectory of how impactful those results were. And also if the results were novel, meaning if it was different from, say, their mentor or their colleagues. And they showed that it slowed down. The impact of science has slowed down so much because everybody wants to stay within the known of their field because they want to keep their funding, they want to keep their jobs. And so if you go really far out there, you can lose your funding and lose your job, which you really don't want to do. And so I call that kind of horizontal incremental studies or results, right? We aren't making these huge vertical leaps. We're just like baby step by baby step moving incrementally. That's actually why I love IONS so much. And when I came to IONS, I was like totally blown away that they were courageous enough to ask research questions that, people in academia often are completely freaked out about to ask, right? They just can't go there.
Right. Dean Radin, I almost called him your partner. Well, I could, right?
He's our chief scientist. Yeah.
So Dean said something to me once that was heavy, crazy, and correct all at the same time. But it took me a minute to digest it. But he said, and this is something that you and Dean talk about a lot, but it was profound. He said, well, Jimmy, everybody, that Dean voice, everybody's looking for these big things, these big things, but no, it happens at the quantum level in such small amounts, but it happens a lot down there to cause these changes, but that's where it's at. And now that's a heavy statement, but Dean was ahead of the curve. Because if you take what Dean spoke about and has been researching all these years, it's exactly what string theory talks about. It's exactly what entanglement refers to. All of these movements at the quantum level. And in string theory, where you have the vibrations and the frequencies of strings determine what a particle is going to be, right? And that's a very small change or movement that has the effect on what the universe is going to be. And that's exactly the kind of thinking that Dean does, and you and IONS, that changes things. And that's where some of this research should go.
Yeah, it's incredible. And, I'm really fascinated. I'm not a physicist at all. And so I can speak as the lay person in terms of the physics. But what I get really excited about are some of these holographic theories where, even when you go to that micro level, the whole is still in the micro level. And at the macro, it's all kind of like these nested dolls, if you will, that, the whole universe is in the photon, say. And
Right. Bingo. And I love that. I love that way of looking at things. Again, it's almost childlike, where you just let your imagination go and think about this, and then go and apply the science to it. But you're right; it's a funding environment that is treacherous.
Yeah.
And to say, if you're out looking for funding and you just put the word consciousness in a published paper, you're done. You're done.
Unless you're looking at it, as a neuroscientist in a very physical way. But I will say, and you mentioned this too, it really is shifting. I think right now the dominant paradigm is not so entrenched, and we're actually kind of straddling two paradigms, the physicalist one and the post-physicalist one, if you want to call it that. Because of quantum physics, because of all of these, bodies of evidence that are growing, that are showing us that, hey, maybe there are this non-local consciousness aspects that are real, that are valid, that we can see in the lab that, physicalist models just can't explain. And it's not that we want to throw it out. It just, we need a broader explanations to look at what's going on exactly.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. But one of the if not the biggest hurdle in all of science, are the two things that they try to achieve, which is observation and measurement. How do you approach that with your research, to observe and measure these things that are kind of difficult, aren't they?
Right, because if you start with the assumption that everything is interconnected, then how do you actually do a controlled experiment? And, we struggle with this all the time. And in our field, there's this common effect called the experimenter effect. So if you have someone, let me just make up a simple example. So let's say you're doing a telepathy experiment, which we're actually doing right now in our lab. So if people want to play with telepathy, they can check out our website. And the person running that telepathy experiment is a complete skeptic and negative, and feels that they're going to get negative results because this is total BS, is impossible, and isn't going to work, right? And then you take another person, another experimenter, like, myself, who's like, hey, telepathy is probably real, and I put together this amazing design, and I anticipate that I'm going to get positive results. And do this same exact study, often with similar people, similar participant characteristics. And the experimenter who's a skeptic will have negative findings, and the experimenter who's a believer will have positive findings. How about that for a replicability issue, right? So the experimenter's belief actually influences the results that you get. This is a widely known experience in parapsychology.
Mm-hmm.
And so the physicalist will say, okay, well then telepathy is just not real, because you can't get consistent results, because there's this idea in physicalism that something is black and white a certain way. And there's no gray, there's no flip-flopping, like quantum physics or Schrodinger's cat, like it's always either black or white. And if you can't measure it, then it's not there. But what we're learning is it's much more nuanced, much more complex, and definitely not black and white. And that there's all these different things that can affect the results. So back to your question, though.
Yes. Okay. I love this conversation. It's perfect.
Yeah. We're very committed to doing rigorous science. And so how do you set up a controlled study that creates enough rigor to have it be controlled and yet doesn't completely squash the signal? And so let's, in this case, say the signal of telepathy. So to strengthen that, you get participants who believe that it's real, who believe that they can do it. You have an experimenter that believes that it's real, that they can get positive results. You set up your controlled experiment. You have a very comfortable setting, so the person feels comfortable, they feel supported. You set up all the things that create the strong signal, and then you still have the controls in the lab to be able to measure it in a clear and objective way.
And I could be way wrong here, but I don't think I am. Didn't Schrodinger, didn't Copenhagen, didn't the double slit experiment clear the path of the idea of telepathy? When they came at us and said, hey, you can change a particle state by just observing it. Well, it's like, wait a minute here. And you don't believe in telepathy?
I know.
You don't believe it. Those same skeptics will say something crazy like, wow, it was nuts. I haven't thought about my best friend from high school in 20 years, but I did today. And then he called.
Yes.
Right? But they don't enjoy the moment of that and wonder how that is possible.
Yeah.
It's nuts to me. It's so frustrating.
Have you heard of the telephone telepathy experiments that have been done?
I have.
Okay, so with Rupert Sheldrake, he's done a bunch of those, and we did a big one as well with a few hundred people. And what was interesting about our experiment was that we had 2 arms, right? So imagine you have 3 people, 3 friends. They sign up for the experiment. They're going to get a robocall from, our IONS server, and it's going to say, guess who is calling you? Person A, person B, or no one? And then they guess. On the back end, the computer will randomly select who they're going to be connected to, but only after they choose. So that's like a precognitive model. It's basically, if they guess right above chance, they're basically telling the future, okay? Because they're guessing
That's right.
who they're going to be connected to that the computer chose. So then the other type of trial that happened, someone would get called and have the same thing. Who were you going to get connected to? Person A, person B, or nobody? And then the other person gets a message saying, hey, you're going to be connected to person A in a moment. Please direct your positive intention towards them, that you're going to connect with them right now. And so they would do that, and then they would be connected. Now, what we found was that the trials where the person was intending, like they knew who they were going to be connected to and they were sending them intention, their partner guessed above chance, whereas in the precognitive one, it was just right at chance. So that was really fascinating to us because it showed telephone telepathy again, but it gave us a little insight into the mechanism, which goes back to this intention piece. Someone was intending to connect with the other. And that can even go back to Dean's work with intention and these, the double slit and these optical systems where someone is directing their intention, and that acts as the observation to collapse the wave function.
If we taught this in schools, taught this kindergarten, right? And literally suggested this, then imagine how far that intention would go once the recipient and the sender know that it's possible. So it's a whole different take on it, and what a different world this would be. But you know what? No more private thoughts. Somebody's going to get really good at it. And that's the other side of it. But
can we dive into that a little bit?
Well, it's my favorite subject. And I'm just the host. You're the guest. You can do whatever you want.
Well, I feel like telepathy is so hot right now. It's such a hot topic because of the telepathy tapes, and everyone's getting really excited about it. And there's more interest than we've ever seen before in these topics, which is
outside of our community, which is so amazing. To be the number 1 podcast in the world, it goes way beyond IONS and this radio broadcast.
Yes. So people are just really enthralled with this idea and I think what's so compelling about the telepathy tapes is that their accuracy rate that we're seeing in these videos is so much higher than what we might see in the lab. So right now, our team is putting together all the papers that have all the studies that have been done on telepathy in the lab, and we're going to create a really accessible evidence map website. So when people say, oh, is telepathy real? What's the evidence for it? People will be able to go to this website and see it all laid out in a really accessible, clear way. And so there have been many, many studies in multiple labs around the world showing this phenomenon of telepathy. Now, the telepathy tapes shows that, but with a much stronger effect size, So in the lab, maybe it's like 0.2, 0.3. In the telepathy tapes, they're seeing like 0.8, 0.9. I mean,
100%,
unheard of results. And so, they've gotten criticism because it's not in a controlled setting, it's just in this kind of documentary setup, but there is a lot of work being done. And maybe Julia talked about this, to do much more controlled studies within honoring the participants, because obviously they have special needs, to be able to show this in a way that the skeptics can't really push back on. But
let me jump in. This is important, and I'm sorry for interrupting. Last weekend, I was in Charlottesville hosting the Psy Games. All right, so I was the host.
I heard
and
about that. Yes.
Yeah, it was amazing. So I'm the host. Now, this is not, and I've listened to the telepathy tapes. I got to hang out with Diane. She's amazing, and she's been a guest on the show and stuff. But there's that part. It's okay to be a skeptic here. And when I listened to the telepathy tapes a few times through, I was happy and critical at the same time. It's the control that I was always concerned about. But now, Helané, I'm on stage with Daria and her autistic daughter, who's nonverbal, and what kind of verbal? I'll say that. She's beautiful. I think her daughter was 14. Beautiful. It's such a special girl. But I'm on stage. I'm this close, and I'm watching it go down. I'm giving the question to ask. I've written down. Only I. And this is all. I can't say it enough. Improvised. And I'm the one, so I get to be the dick, if you know what I mean. I'm holding the question. I get to control this. I get to really see and man, I almost passed out. When you see that going down, and this beautiful girl, I'm holding, and I brought somebody up from the audience, and we wrote questions down together, totally in my control. And I see her daughter tap out the answer to the question that only I knew.
Right.
And I'm
it's profound. It's so profound, right? Yeah.
Woo. It was just, now I'm also a parent. Now I know that, and let's stay on the subject. It's so important. I know that as a parent, you have a direct connection to your children. That's a given. My daughters never got away with crap. All right. You just know. Well, neither did I, though. I couldn't keep secrets from them either. But when you go out beyond that and you start to look at this on what the phenomenon may be, I think this is my take. And I'm going to throw the question to you. I think it's very fundamental. I think that whatever it is that is happening is the same cause of all the other phenomena. I mean, when I say everything, I mean ghosts, spirits, channeling, and anything else you want to throw into the mix here. I think that it's all one thing that we don't understand yet. It's consciousness based, but we just haven't figured it out. That's my take. What do you think? You think it's fundamental? It's like one thing that is causing all of this supernatural amazement?
Yeah, Dean and I just were talking about that the other day, because, the human mind really likes to put things in buckets and gives it a name and, puts nice little box around it. And yet it does seem like telepathy, precognition, psychokinesis, all of these kind of ESP phenomenon are aspects of the similar fundamental aspect of reality, which is that we're all interconnected in some way. And if you tap into that interconnectedness, then the idea of communicating telepathically is like not even a big deal. It's like, oh yeah, I can, I have kids too. So I've done, tested out my like, hey, remember your blah, blah, and they say, Mom. So yeah, I totally get that. But, I want to come back to this piece because I think it's so important to have a dialogue around this, because you said, but that's going to be, I don't know exactly what you said, something like that's going to be really scary because then you won't have private thoughts anymore.
Mhm.
And I think that really scares people a lot, right?
It should.
This
It should
idea, the idea that someone would invasively go into their mind and dig around and root out things that they don't want people to know. But from my personal experience, from the many, many people I've talked to, from, even the telepathy tapes, it doesn't work that way. Like this, all the horror movies and the superhero movies of the red light, zapping into the person and taking them over, that, in the real live examples of telepathy, we don't see it work like that. And that there are, especially in esoteric traditions, ways to block, prevent, protect yourself from any sort of bad actor that might have any ability to do something like that. There's actually one study that tested that in the lab too, but you get a lot more anecdotal information about that and in training programs too. But what I get so excited about is, well, what if, like, I dream about the veil just falling down tomorrow, and then all of a sudden everybody's massively telepathic. We would have to become so impeccable with our thoughts very, very quickly. It would be a very, maybe somewhat traumatic learning experience, but I would have to be totally on point. What I think is what I say, completely aligned action. No more lying politicians, no more obfuscating, no more hidden agendas. We couldn't
But does that
lie
mean
to each other anymore.
Right. But I enjoy having my private twisted thoughts.
That's fine. I mean,
You know what I mean? I
think
don't need people to know how dark I go. Right? But that's part of it. And do we have to give up those kind of creative freedoms if that veil drops?
I don't think so. Like, the way I experience it is that I can have a protected space of Helané thinking. I'm just running with this, right? For fun.
Sure.
Okay. We're just
Sure,
playing
sure.
with this. I have a protected space of Helané thinking. And, you can't come in without my consent and dig around in my brain and see what I'm thinking, right? But if
Mhm.
I project a mental thought to you, because it comes with attention and intention. If I want to communicate to you, hey, meet me under the oak tree, and I'm projecting, hey, Jimmy, meet me under the oak tree, and then all of a sudden you get an image, and a feeling, I'm going to go hang out with Helané, and you walk out to the oak tree, and then there I am, right? So it's not like I can go in and dig around to see what you're thinking about right now, but my mental image to you comes through in a pure way. Like, I can't put like a layered
Yeah, how beautiful
communication.
is that? How beautiful.
Am I making any sense? Is this
Oh, I
making
love it.
sense at
I
all?
love it.
Okay.
I love it. But here's the dark side. Okay, let me
Sure.
give you the dark side. When I say twisted thoughts, all right? Some things need to stay private. But what if, right? So somebody comes up to me or comes up to you and says, Helané, what do you mean strawberry jelly on pepperoni pizza? Are you out of your mind? And then you're like, that's a private thought, man. That's just, you have no right to that. But yeah, I wonder what that would taste like. Well, that's what I mean. That creativity thing. Some things are better left. And that's the scary part, that people sometimes just want their private thoughts kept to themselves.
Right. So we would have to learn how to keep what's private, and how to project, if you will, for lack of a better word, what we want to communicate, right? And so that's kind of what I meant when I said, okay, if the veil dropped, everything would be all over the place, but then we would quickly learn how to, hey, no, this is my private thought, and I'm not going to project it to the world, my strawberry jam on pepperoni pizza. But what I do want to project is, hey, meet me under the oak tree or whatever, and that there is a conscious intent with the telepathic communication.
The idea of, and there's so many, and I pretty much ask this of every guest. It doesn't matter what their background is or what they do. I just love getting people's answers because we all think about it. So consciousness, what's the origin? If it's non-physical, then it's getting kickstarted somewhere else outside of us.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
You've thought about it a
I have.
zillion
I mean,
times.
I don't think, well, I talked about the little c and the big C. We can talk a lot about the little c and where, how that can shift and change and neural correlates of it, etc. But where the big C originated, if there is this grounded base of reality that is consciousness, there's nothing before it. There's nothing that originates it. And so it just is. And, then we move into this whole spiritual idea of it. It becomes very spiritual, right?
It does,
or magical or whatever. And my human mind can't explain that. I have no clue how that happened, if that really is true.
You know how I try to keep the sanity in that thought, because it's a ginormous idea, right? Is that infinity is a big number,
right?
And that's where consciousness is.
Right.
It's like that. It's forever. How long is forever, Jimmy? Forever, right? That's It's like, and how wise can consciousness get? Forever, right? And that's what we're dealing with here now. Okay,
I don't think we can get that cognitively with our human mind. I don't think we can. But I will say, there's lots of traditions where they go into a transcendent state, a samadhi state, where they feel like their ego, their personality, their separate self is completely dissolved, and they just melt into that everything that is. Even our founder, Edgar Mitchell, Apollo 14 astronaut, sixth person to walk on the moon, had that experience coming back from the moon to Earth, which is what triggered his whole, this linear thinking engineer to dive into these topics. So people can have, I don't know if you can feel being the entire universe, but those transcendent states are incredibly profound, and they're ineffable, meaning we can't describe it with words. I don't think we can cognitively understand infinity.
We don't have a vocabulary. Well, not only vocabulary for it, but our ability to understand hasn't gotten there yet.
Right.
We improve on that every single day, right? We understand more in our ability. I'm talking to somebody like you about this subject. I don't have a PhD. I just play one on TV. But it's really true, though. We are starting to be able to digest this. But it's the biggest of thoughts. It's the biggest of ideas. And you're right. We don't have the vocabulary for it at all.
And I think we have to come to it with humility because of that.
Completely.
Like, who am I? Yeah, who am I to say, oh, no, that's impossible, or that doesn't exist, or no, that's wrong? Who am I to say any of that?
Anybody that says that, I just run. I laugh. You're not as smart as you think you are, and but okay, so let me throw this idea out to you. When we look at I'm going to get into physics just a little bit, but it's simple. Hawking radiation, black holes, the spaghettification of matter, and what enters into a black hole gets permanently taken apart. All right, there's that part. The other situation that we have is dark energy that is pushing the universe around, but we can't see it and we can't measure it or anything. We have that. What does that have to do with consciousness? I think it has everything to do with it, because now science is leaning on information, and thought is always there. It doesn't go away. Information doesn't disappear in a black hole. Thought doesn't disappear in a black hole. And I stop and thinking never stops. That's a crazy thought, but this is where science is going right now. And I think that they're saying these things without saying the word consciousness. They want to get there, right? It's getting there, but maybe that is what is connecting everything, which is the numbers keep pushing them in this direction, and they're fighting the C word, the big C word, but they're going to get there eventually, aren't they?
I think so. I mean, I think all of these lines are going to merge at some point on a grounded truth. And we have to just allow ourselves to be open and curious and humble and release our preconceived human notions to allow that to be so. Because, part of in this search of consciousness is like, well, consciousness has to look like human consciousness. And if it doesn't, then it's not really consciousness.
Right.
And like, okay, who made that a rule? A black hole could be conscious. It's not
Absolutely.
it's not a human consciousness, but it could have some consciousness that I can't even begin to comprehend. Right.
It is thinking. This planet is thinking. And I don't have issues with that. It's really a strange place to get to. Are we talking about fully sentient? Well, you know what? Mother Nature gets pretty pissed off sometimes when we goof around. And is that a sentient thing? Well, I think that there's a good argument for that.
Yes, I was reminded of some really incredible work by Clive Baxter today with plants. I don't know if you have heard of his work. You imagine the two plants next to each other, and someone comes in and basically tears one of the plants apart, basically kills the plant, right? And then they hook up the second plant to measuring, collecting devices of the plant's physiology. And they bring people in the room and test what's going on in the plant. And then when the murderer comes in, the plant totally freaks out, right? And
totally freaks out. Yeah.
So that plant has some type of consciousness that can know who this person is coming in the room. I mean, how do they know that? That totally doesn't fit within our current worldview.
Totally sentient. Plants, trees, community. And you see, okay, I don't know if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, but I love making fun of them. So
I'm not.
Please. Okay, good.
I'm not.
Good. Well, then you will really appreciate this, which is this. Vegans and vegetarians and harming of animals. Wait a minute. Pull off some corn off of a plant. That plant's not in pain. That plant's not upset. You're pulling something out of the, you're chopping something. You rip a leaf and measure that plant and see if it's not feeling pain. So don't come at me with that, where you have two trees in a forest that move around so the little trees below them can get sunlight. Don't tell me that they're not thinking. And they have organization. They have a culture. They have society. No, I'm fully on board with that, but that doesn't mean I won't eat a big pile of broccoli and not worry about it. But yeah, I think that consciousness has a way of seeping in to particles, which brings me to we've got to take a break. But when we come back, I want your thought. We'll start here. I'll give you an opportunity to think about this. At what point does consciousness seep in to us? Save your answer from when we come back. Our guest tonight, Helané Wahbeh, is with us. An amazing conversation. Just did that. I clicked on the wrong button. Helané, you stay right there. We'll be right back after this short break. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Beckley Teppy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. Jimmy Church, Gaia TV, Fade to Black, here at Machu Picchu with Brian Forster and Hidden Inca Tours. Amazing tour so far, Brian, but we're here to announce what we're going to do next year in 2026. What's going on?
Okay, November 2026, we're going to have our major tour of Peru and Bolivia, either a pre or post tour of Paracas and Nazca on the coast. And then after that, 6 days in Easter Island.
Bucket list, Easter Island. Come join Brian and I and his amazing team here at Hidden Inca Tours for Peru, Bolivia, and Easter Island. Signing out. Say goodbye, Brian.
Bye, gang.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Helané Wahbeh is with us. Noetic Sciences, IONS, us, consciousness, telepathy, my favorite word, entanglement. We're doing all of that tonight and much more. Helané, right before the break. So It's a non-trivial question, isn't it? At
Yes.
what point does consciousness get to us? What do you think?
So again, I'm going to set aside my science hat and speak to you from a spiritual and also a channeling perspective, channeling content. So I've worked with a lot of specifically trance channelers. And so everything we've been talking about thus far, I would call channeling, this ability to access information and energy from beyond time and space. It looks very differently for different people, but there's one type of channeling called trance channeling, where the trance channeler believes that they act as a vehicle for a non-physical being to speak through them, whether that's a deceased person or a guide or an angel or an extraterrestrial. That's their belief that that's the source of the content coming through. So back to your question. Now, if you imagine consciousness as one thing, like the electromagnetic spectrum, right? That's one thing. But if you take a single frequency on that, like let's say frequency of red has a very particular characteristic to it, right? And it can appear very separate than the larger spectrum, but it's still part of the spectrum. So when we talk about consciousness being the fundamental of all being, and yet I can still have a Helané consciousness that can feel separate from that, that's a nice metaphor to hold. And so from spiritual traditions, channeling content, the idea of consciousness is that it is eternal and that it, through intention, manifests experiences. So it could be in some non-physical plane saying, hey, I want to come have a life on Earth. I'm going to choose who my parents are. They're going to make a physical body that I'm going to then, when the time is right, whenever that is, inhabit that body and come into this world. And that physical body is a vehicle that moves me around in the physical space, in this human space. And that when I die, all of those experiences get integrated into a larger spirit, soul, whatever you want to call it, that is still one small part of this larger consciousness piece. Now, I did a really far out there study. I mean, I know we're already talking about far out stuff, but this study was really far out, and it was with a wonderful collaborator in France. And she had mediums work with pregnant women and actually connect with the fetus, the fetal consciousness. That was the intention, to connect with this fetal consciousness. And it was a pretty controlled study where they, in this blinded way, got all this information about the parents, and the medium didn't know. And they went through and asked all these questions and found some. It wasn't 100% accurate by far, but there were some really interesting, correct answers that this medium got supposedly from this supposed fetal consciousness. Now, that's really controversial because obviously there's a lot of arguments about when the fetus is conscious or not conscious and all of that. But how about I stop there and see what your thoughts are on all of that. But you basically asked, when does consciousness seep in? It's ever present, but I think there is a process of when we inhabit a physical body.
Is it at the moment of sperm and egg contact?
My understanding from all of those non-science sources that I'm telling you about, right, is that the sperm has its sperm consciousness, the egg has its egg consciousness, but the spirit soul that might be Helané doesn't come in right away.
Everything's on the table. That's as possible as any other idea out there.
Yeah.
I okay, I'm going to throw this out there. 2 weeks ago, this is a true story. We've all done it a zillion times. But 2 weeks ago, I'm sitting on my couch watching something on TV. And there was this father-daughter moment in this program that I'm watching. And I just went, oh man, I gotta text my daughter. Just say hello. So I picked up my phone and clicked. I got her name up, and our texting thread is there, and I'm starting to text, and she's texting me at that moment. And then it pops in, I love you, Dad. Now, wait a minute, right? Is that entanglement flexing its muscle, right? Is it that? Is it something else? Is it two conscious minds? Is it telepathy? You know what? I don't know, but it happened. Now, there are people out there that don't give a crap about stuff like that. And I just stopped and enjoyed the moment. I smiled and I hit her back. Now, I should have called her and said, I was texting you at the same time. Yeah, okay, we could have had that moment. Or I could just sit back and go, man, I've got to figure this out. This is not coincidence. This is not some random thing, some random moment, some reductionist, predetermined, right mindset of it was going to happen anyway. There's nothing special here. No. It's incredible. Now, again, is that entanglement just flexing its muscle, which could be back to the soul container? When does consciousness start? Is it something as basic as just it's entanglement of consciousness out there, and this is the way that it is? It's actually very simple.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is we don't really know. But if we hold this assumption that everything is interconnected on a very fundamental consciousness level, then it makes sense that of course would happen. And just so you know, you are not alone. That anecdote is shared by many, 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 many people. And it's not just anecdotal. There have been numerous protocols in the labs that have tested that and shown that emotionally bonded pairs of people not only can transmit mental impressions, although transmit's not the best word to use there, but you can share mental impressions. Your body can even get changes from your paired person. If you're in a room, completely at the opposite side of the building, they've looked at EEG and EKG and skin conductance. Your body changes when your loved one is thinking about you in a certain way. And we're actually doing that telepathy experiment in our online right now with pairs of bonded people. And it's a really cool task because one person's on one Zoom and then the other person's on the other Zoom. And, we have control so they can't be texting on their phone or whatever. And then one person does either positive intention towards their loved one, or they do count backwards from 100, right? And then the other person has to guess, are they intending to me right now? No, they just say, are they intending or not? It's just a yes, no binary. So the one person's either sending or doing math, and then the other person is, are they intending or not intending? And we're getting a bunch of pairs of people who are getting above chance results. And so how do you take those very deeply meaningful experiences like you had with your daughter and then say, hey, this is actually a real thing. And we even see this when we're doing this in this very rigorous, controlled setting. And I try not to show that to the diehard skeptics because they don't really care. It's those people in the middle. It's those people like yourself who've had those experiences and are like, whoa, what was that? And so could entanglement explain that? maybe, I mean, I'm not a physicist, but it makes sense if we're all, separate, not separate, but just aspects of this same larger whole. Why wouldn't I be able to sense my loved one? Like, it's almost like wouldn't make sense to not be able to do that.
It's been going on and has been talked about for thousands of years, and with different words, different thought processes or whatever. But when channeling is a very interesting thing. But if you look at the Old Testament and somebody says, well, you know what, man, God spoke to me and he said, what are we actually talking about here?
I know.
Right? But it's okay.
Many of our world religions were founded on channeled messages.
Yes. But channeling ET, no, that's impossible. Oh, but throw God in the mix.
Right.
And it's okay. That is absolutely fascinating to me, how the blinders, that cognitive dissonance just shows its ugly head so often. But yet the Bible is okay to reference ET or aliens or flying ships or stuff in the heavens and angels and all the parting of the Red Sea, whatever you want to throw into it. All of that supernatural stuff is okay if it's in a religious context. But no, spirits and things today are not real, or channeling, for instance. Now, I keep going back to entanglement. If we have the ability, like with my daughter, where entangled so let's say you and I entangle all of our particles. By the way, I believe that every particle in the universe is entangled.
Well, why wouldn't it be? Right? Like if there was the Big Bang, right? If that really happened, why wouldn't we all be entangled?
Everything is entangled. So my brain and your brain, every part, right? That's telepathy. So if we go with Einstein and physics and science, that these particles can change each other and interact with each other no matter the distance or the mass that may be between them, right? Okay, that's a heavy thought, but that is channeling, right? That's what that is to me. And it is again, we keep using the word, fundamental, but is it really that simple? That's all it is. It's just you're entangling yourself with another mind out there that is thinking, and that's it. It's that simple. It's not some crazy technical thing. It's just something very, very basic.
Right. Well, you talk to people who experience it all the time or get trained at it, and there are trainings for telepathy, for precognition, for remote viewing, very successful remote viewing programs. And, they'll often describe it like that, like a very simple experience. I just know there's this thing here at these coordinates. It's just a knowingness. It feels, the mechanism feels simple by the experiencers. Nuance, certainly, but so yeah, I'm not a physicist. So, my understanding of entanglement only goes so far. But to me, as the lay person, I mean, obviously I'm a scientist and have my own domains that I am an expert at, but sure, it makes sense that could be the mechanism. And yet, how do you prove that in a controlled way? I don't know if we could prove
we're gonna
that
get
everything.
There.
I think we will at some point, but I don't know how to do that exactly.
It's just the power of suggestion.
Right.
That's all you have to do, and not in a supernatural way. This cell phone, right? Okay, that's a brilliant invention, isn't it? All right. All this was a suggestion to a team of engineers. It was an impossible thing, but look, give somebody the idea and they're going to go out and get it done. So this is when we bring up ET. Here it comes. All right. You ready? This
I'm
is when I
ready.
bring up ET. ET shows up. They're already here, but let's go to the next big step with ET. ET shows up and starts yapping. Okay. Starts talking. And we want a cure for cancer, cure for pollution, elimination of nuclear weapons, all of these big things that we supposedly need help with ET, right? It's just dumb ideas. But anyway, ET shows up and goes, no, we're not going to do that. It's all about consciousness. That's your next stage of evolution. All that other stuff will happen on its own, but it's all about consciousness. That's when we go off to the races. Oh, really? Okay. So it's only the power of suggestion. And if that is told to us by an advanced race that has got it figured out and figured out consciousness and what it is, and they come here and tell us, oh, you want to move up? It's about consciousness. Then we will take it seriously. And that's my take. That's my take.
Great. Yeah, I hear you. I agree with you. And I think the question that humanity would have, at least the people who aren't in the know at this moment, is, well, what does that mean? How do I awaken my consciousness, or how do I evolve that? But, I just finished a study. I'm very fascinated by ET, although I don't know, I haven't gone down the rabbit hole of all the UAP and ufology and all this stuff.
Have you seen anything in the sky?
No, but
not yet. Okay.
My experience of it is through trance channeling and through witnessing a trance channeler channel who they believed was an ET. And it was a person who I had no reason to doubt was lying or making it up. Anyway, so I've had a lot of personal experiences, and there was this whole, UAP renaissance, and I got excited to do a study about this. So there's more and more trance channelers who say the source of my information is an ET. So what we did is we collated all of that data, about 6,000 records, and we, did all our data processing.
Let's put that to the side. Let's put the data to the side for a second. Basic, how did you find this channeler?
It's my mom.
Oh, shut the front door. What? Okay. All right. Oh man, that's 500 questions. That's like 3 shows worth of.
So I know I can trance channel. My mother is a trance channeler. My grandmother was a trance channeler. It kind of runs in my family, and that's what personally got me excited about studying that phenomenon. So yeah, I trust my mom. I'm not paying her. She has no reason to lie to me. And we've been doing trance channeling sessions together for decades. And, there were multiple times where a supposed ET was coming through and saying lots of very, very interesting things. And I just kind of tucked that aside and took it in and didn't really do anything with it.
She's cool. I want to hang out with your mom. Yeah.
Yeah. So can I go back to the data? Because it is my fun thing.
Oh, man. Where's your mom? Can we get her to bring her in here?
Yeah.
So how do you... Oh.
Sorry about that.
See, that was your mom from data reticuli. How do you start to collect data on this?
So there's so many trance channelers nowadays. Like you can just do a search online and, so-and-so trance channeler channeling Palladians or Arcturians or Andromedans. So we put a call out, we scraped the internet with publicly stuff, and we got all that data and we put it in an AI data set, sequestered all on its own. Then my collaborator, Ryan S. Wood, has Do you know him?
Oh, of course. Yeah, he's great. Yeah,
he's great. So he has this huge thing, UFODex, with like, 750,000 documents, but that's all like military disclosure documents. It's very like 3D governmental documents. So it's not the same as the trans channeling stuff, right? It's not coming from the same source at all. And then we queried those two separate data sets on 10 questions. When's disclosure going to happen? Why are you here? What's your relationship with humans? Communication methods, space travel, time, 10 different really cool questions. And we got the answers from the channeling data set, from the UFODex data set. And then we did this really cool analysis to see how similar they were. And I was not expecting them to be similar at all, but they were rated very, very similarly, like 0.8, 0.9 on this metric, which kind of blew me away, right? So like, why would the governmental information be the same as the trans-channeled information, which was really fascinating. But back to this consciousness piece, that is an incredibly common theme, that in order, this whole idea of non-intervention and not doing harm and galactic federation and supporting humanity to awaken to its true nature, which is not a physicalist nature. We are more than our bodies. We, exist, et cetera, and that is the key for disclosure happening, for, these technologies to be released. Because if we're still stuck in greed, power, and control, then it's not responsible to allow us to even have that. So those are the types of messages that are coming through in this content.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. What would your, okay, you just had 10 questions, right? And they actually, they were the right ones. But what would you, and have you, what's the one question you would ask ET? Only one.
Right. I'm really excited about disclosure, and when's that going to happen? What's it going to take? How do we accelerate it? I know those are three, but it's all about the disclosure piece.
That would be your question? Really?
Yes. Because I think everything.
That's your final answer?
I think everything flows from there.
Well, it does. It does. It does. You know what my question would be?
What?
How did you do it? How did you survive? How did you not kill each other off? How did you get past that?
Yeah.
That to me, I mean, for us here, because damn it, we're close to really messing things up, aren't we? And we've always been really close to messing things up. We've managed to survive. But how do we make it? How did they make it? How did they get over the hump?
Yeah.
And then flourish? And that would be my question.
I've asked that. Yeah. I mean, so that study I just described, we just submitted that for peer review, and that study's done. But I'm still doing a current study where I'm interviewing trans channelers in real time instead of pulling it off the web. And that is a question that comes up. And the answer is simple if you're asking for the big picture. They woke up and realized that they're all one, that we're all one, that everything is interconnected in one. And the guiding rule, law, structure is do no harm.
Again, it sounds so simple, but we can never accept it. I don't know. We're getting better at it, though. I think we're starting to grow up and mature. But then I have a Pandora's box with this whole thing. and I've seen things, I've experienced things, and I love this community and I love this subject. But here's my Pandora's box. What if ET shows up and goes, you know what? It's always going to suck. It's the pursuit of no suckiness that keeps you moving forward, but it just never gets better. What if that is the message? You know, we hear from a time traveler, you know, 1 billion years in the future, and they go, you know what? We spend 1 billion years, and it was just all just one thing after another, you know, and it just, we never achieved happiness and bliss. We pursued it, but we never got there. And that's the other Pandora's. It's like, what if that's it? Oh, you know what? And I base that on when we look at our brief moment here where we can look at history. All right. How old is history? Well, we can kind of go back 5,000 years, you know, 3000 BC, you know, the first forms of writing and stuff where things are kind of documented. But if we look at the last 5,000 years, it has been just one long struggle. Right. And that's it. Do we just base it on that, on our own little experiment Earth? I'm just hoping that through trans channelers and people that are reaching out there to more advanced minds and enlightened beings, that we can get a little bit of advice on how to get over the hurdles. Now back to, and it's your mom. Does your mom contaminate the pool because you guys are so close?
For the study, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
How do you remain objective? I mean, are you able to go, oh, Mom, come on?
Yeah. Well, she's one of many participants, so she's not the only one. And you know, when she's in that state, it's not her personal self, if you will. And when I'm in that state, I try to be as neutral as possible. And we're just recording it. And I have my structured questions that are the same for everybody. And I just go through the questions. Can I
ask you some personal stuff really quick?
Yeah. Let me just say right now I'm doing a number of trans channels where the intention is to connect with 10 different races. So each interview is a supposedly different race of beings.
This is getting frustrating. You're answering my questions before I can ask them.
Well, I know we're connected, and I'm knowing.
Yeah, that's mind-blowing. Okay, so this is the personal question. Do you know? Well, you just answered it, though. But do you? If consciousness is universal, I don't know, but let's just say it's just a bath of everything in the universe. How do you know which races and which direct? You know, people say zeta reticuli, right? And or whatever these different groups. How do you know that that's where you are going to, and how do you achieve different races and different species?
So, like with, you know, most spiritualist traditions or trans channeling traditions, there is an intention that is set. There is a belief that there are spirit guides that guide the process and provide protection for the trance channeler and orchestrate who's going to come in at any moment. So that's the belief of the process of how it works. So we set the intention, okay, this interview, we want to connect with these beings. The non-physical beings, guides, help that to manifest.
So strange to have a professor of neurology from a university speak on these subjects.
I know. I wanted to clarify that. I was in the Department of Neurology, but I'm actually a naturopathic clinician. So I was basically trained as a doctor, physician, a clinician. Yeah.
And so how do you balance the science side of it with the other side? Do you ever get pulled one way or the other, and do you try to stay in the middle?
Yes, all the time. And, like I mentioned, I really try to be clear on interviews like this. Hey, this is what I'm sharing as a scientist. Here's the study, here's the data, here's the results, etc. And I'm very committed to doing rigorous science, controlled studies, etc. But then if you ask me a personal question, I can take that hat off and say, hey, here's what I think. Here's my beliefs. Here's what I'm speculating about. Here's what I think I know and what I totally have no clue about. And so everybody asks, one of the favorite questions when we get into the trans channeling is like, well, who is it? What's the source? Like, how do you know? And we right now with the tools we have, I can't prove definitively what the source is. I just can't. And so that's why I keep saying supposed, apparent, purported. Here's who they think the source is. But right now I can't prove that really was an ET or not. And so to me, what's more important is the content. What are they actually saying? Is that useful? Is it actionable? And these series of studies I'm doing is about correspondence. So if 10 channelers supposedly channel a Palladian and they give the exact same very specific information, that's really compelling to me. It doesn't prove that it was a Palladian. Some skeptic might say, oh, it was telepathy. And I'd say, okay, well, that's still pretty cool.
It's the same thing, though. It's the same thing.
I know. I'm joking. I was kind of joking.
No. What I mean is, let me give you an example. And this is why I'm so adamant about these subjects. But let me give you a practical example. Radio and television, radio signals are at the speed of light. Electricity at the speed of light, right? Electromagnetic, anything at the speed of light. That's its limit. Well, our closest star system here, Alpha Centauri, is 4.5 light years away. That's a long way, but it's our closest celestial neighbor, right? If you and I cruise on a starship out there and we visit, you and I, and we get a flat tire, we have to wait 9 years for a response from planet Earth if we need help. 9 years. We're dead, right? It's over. 9 years. So that's not going to work. You know what does work? Entanglement and telepathy. Mm-hmm. That's at the speed of now. So that's how ET is communicating to their home planet that is 1,000 light years away while they're here on Earth, or getting travel plans, or two starships are passing each other. Hey, man, did you go to that star back there? We did. We checked out the planet too. Well, they're not doing that while they're traveling at the speed of light. That they wouldn't be able to communicate. They would this way. And that's how the universe works. It's not through the limitations of the speed of light.
I agree. That's it. And we see that over and over again experimentally with these types of phenomena. It happens instantaneously. It's much faster than the speed of light.
It's the speed of now.
Right. And so now to circle back to the worldview, if we're stuck in this physicalist worldview where some force, some signal is passing from point A to point B, 4.5 million light years away, whatever. And they say, oh, well, that's just impossible. So there's no way that ETs can come here. I'm just kind of making this example up, right?
It's been said 1,000 times.
I know. So because you're stuck in this worldview. And so it's like, how do we bust open people's worldviews outside of this limited human, number one, then limited their own personal self, etc. That to me is the key.
Well, what data did you get back from that question?
So, they talked about, oh yeah, we have vehicles and they're made with these special materials, and, we're able to move through space and time in a, effortless way. That it's like a jump. I don't know. I didn't get into the science pieces of it.
But that they do it because it's easy. And if ET, I love that, right? So you channel that. If ET came back with, again, I don't want to contaminate the pool, but if ET came back with, you know what, man, get away. It's easy for us to do.
Right.
Don't get into the technical aspects of it. We don't have to get in the technical aspects of explaining getting into a car and driving to the shopping mall that's 10 miles away and coming back home. It's a lot of technical things that are involved with that: tires, gasoline, the this, that, the car, the speed, the engine, the road, the traffic. This, okay. No, we do it because it's easy. That's it. That's why we go shopping. And an ET traveling here or traveling anywhere else, they do it because it's easy. They're not doing it because they're traveling for 10,000 years on a ship.
No,
Forward to here.
yeah, I mean, that's definitely not the message that is coming through at all, and most of the content that I'm seeing these days is, we are here to support humanity to wake up and evolve past the war and the greed and the power and the violence, etc. That it's time. And so there's more and more of that. And we see it in the whole UAP renaissance and various, aerial phenomenon that aren't being explained. And we're seeing it in the more spiritual, new agey trans-channeling communities as well.
Sure. Do you typically connect with and channel the same source? Does it have a name?
Me personally, you mean?
Yeah, you.
No, it varies.
It varies.
But I don't do this professionally. This is just part of my own kind of personal practice, if you will. Now, some trans channelers say, like Daryl Anka channels Bashar, or I'm really bad with names. Theo, there's another trans channeler, Theo. There's some, Esther Hicks and Abraham, the big names.
Mm-hmm.
They just channel one supposed being. But there's other trans channelers who channel whoever needs to be channeled in that moment, depending on the scenario, if they're working with a client or they have some other question. So it can vary.
I just so you know, in the interest of transparency, I host a lot of Daryl's events, and I know him really well. We're pretty close. And
I got to spend some time with him recently, and it was really wonderful. Very cool.
He's man. There's cool, and then there's cool. He's beyond Dean Martin cool, right?
Yeah.
He's like at that level. Well, anyway, to be standing with him, and I've done this countless times, standing with him off stage, and I've got a live mic, right? I've got 1,000 people, right, yelling and screaming. And I go, okay, man, you ready? He goes, you know what? Let's go. And then, so I know Daryl, and then I see the transformation.
Mm-hmm.
I find it incredible.
Yeah.
I really, really, really do. I don't understand it. I don't. Those that are really good at it have a gift. There's a lot of charlatans out there too, as well. That's
Sure.
the other difficult thing. But the ones that are really good at it, Jane Roberts, man, oh geez, yeah, I just, whew. So
yeah, yes.
Now, but back to you specifically, how easy is it for you to have done it the first time And is it a process? Is it like exercise? Is it athletic that you're going to get better over time?
Sure. So, I grew up with this in my family. So I went to my first meeting at my grandparents' house when I was 10 years old. And I
Oh, man.
saw my grandmother and my uncle, so I kind of grew up, what I now understand is like a spiritualist community, even though I went to Orthodox Christian church on Sunday and went to Catholic school during my day. So it was a very eclectic spiritual background. So I grew up witnessing this, but I never did it. But I had other psi phenomenon that I experienced very regularly, just not trans-channeling. Then I started working at IONS. I started the IONS channeling research program. We've been doing a number of really cool studies. And a colleague of mine told me that he was using hypnosis to teach people how to trans-channel, and that they developed this whole protocol. This is in Italy, Patricio Trisoldi. So I said, I want to do that. So I got his protocol. We translated it to English. We got it, kind of working for English audience. I got a hypnotist, and I worked with her for 6 sessions to learn how to trans-channel. And it went through this very structured process of becoming more relaxed, more comfortable, creating a safe space, playing with out-of-body experiences. You talked about Graham Nichols, who I know too, who's really fantastic, this idea of out-of-body experiences. And then with intention, the last hypnosis session did a trans-channeling. And it was the most bizarre experience I'd ever had in my entire life. Just having words come out of my mouth that I didn't plan. I had no clue what I was going to say, and they were just flowing out. And my experience of it is that I'm Helané, personality Helané is kind of like steps aside, and whatever it is, whether it's my higher self or who knows what, my guide or whatever you want to call the source, is speaking.
Do you think, do you ever go, man, this is crazy town, I've lost it?
Yeah, because my ego self, and
Right.
I think that's why it was harder for me to do it, because my science mind is very skeptical. It's like, is this real? Is this me? What's happening? And so I'm also a meditator. I've meditated for over 20 years. So a lot of it was also just working with that ego mind to make it very still and quiet, and just be in that still witness observer self to witness what was coming through. And so the other piece about source is it ET? Is it the deceased person? Is this? If we really are all one, then it's just different aspects of ourselves, right? And so we get so caught up in what is the actual source. And often people will project their authority onto trans-channeled. Oh, it has to be true. And oh, this trans-channeler said this, so I got to do what they got to do. I'm totally not into that. I'm always inviting people to go within, to have their own kind of true north about how to use that information, and to not project their authority outside of themselves, but say, hey, is this useful for me? Is this helpful, etc. So back to my personal experience, once I was able to do it, then it was like, okay, now I get it. And it was just kind of like this embodied experience. And the more that I do it, the easier it is. And I don't do it super often, but I try to keep it up so that it still feels comfortable and natural. So wait 1 second, because this is really, really important. I just put the paper out about that hypnosis protocol.
Where's it at?
It's going to be in the Journal of Scientific Exploration, and we put up a preprint, and it's on our website, because this is an amazing way for scientists and other people to learn how to do this.
Okay, what's the preprint? Is it archive or something?
Yeah, it's available online, even though the Journal of Scientific Exploration hasn't been published yet. I think it's going to come out in December or something. And
Okay.
that's an
Okay.
open access journal.
Please listen. I'm going to tell you this now. I'll channel this to you later. Do not forget to let me know when it goes preprint and then when it goes print, so I can not only guide people to it, but I want to cover it and report on it. So,
Yes.
and let everybody know. So do not forget.
I won't.
That's fascinating to me.
Yes, because can you imagine if we could get skeptics, or not even skeptics, just scientists who have a different, we call it the library of the mind, right? Because each channeler is unique and different and has their own vocabulary, and the brain is still used as a tool in that process, right? So if you have a physicist who learns how to trans-channel, they're going to be able to channel really cool information that I can't because I'm not a physicist.
You said it should be mandatory earlier, right? This should be a You know what else should be mandatory? DMT.
Yeah. Okay.
My straight face is on. And I'm not talking about psychedelics. I'm not talking about mushrooms. That's all recreational fun, haha, Burning Man stuff. It has its purpose too. Okay, I get that. But that's not what I'm talking about. And I haven't done anything fun like that in 30 years. All right. But DMT is a key. It's not a drug. Okay. It's a key. It's a tool. And it's quick. It's 5 minutes in and out. But what it does, and so somebody that we've been talking about all night, right? The hardcore skeptic that doesn't ponder, right? They're so frustrated. But if they just imagine what their postdoc work would be like if they just explored the reality that is around them that they're not aware of. Just imagine that, how it would change things. How cool would Neil deGrasse Tyson actually turn out to
be? That's hilarious. That's awesome.
No, it's true. I'm not cracking jokes.
I'm
not cracking jokes. I'm being very, very, very serious, because in these altered states of consciousness that we're talking about, whether it's meditation or it's trans channeling or even remote viewing, right? I think that all of these things are just again, a fundamental thing that's going on. I think it's all connected. And we use these words too often. It's all connected. Well, it is. But imagine if DMT, and only once, but it will show those out there what is around. That's it. That's all you don't do it every day. You don't do it for the rest of your life. Let's do it once and then understand and let your brain try to assemble this other world. You brought up Nichols. He's a fascinating guy. But if you look at the work of Andrew Gallimore, who's a neuroscientist, he's brilliant, and read his books and his study into this, I think that we will soon start to put these puzzle pieces together.
Yes.
So that's my take.
No, absolutely. And that altered state of normal consciousness is the key, whether it's DMT or meditation or some other psychedelic or just having an incredible lucid dream or out of body experience. There's so many paths to get to this state that is different from our normal state, that reveals behind the veil of perhaps likely what is the true nature of reality, that I'm more than this body, that we are completely interconnected, that we can communicate in non-local ways. All of these things that you said, oh, it's part of the same thing, that are likely part of that. They're like symptoms or phenomenon that arise from this same concept of this, for lack of a better word, oneness.
I would love, I'm so jealous of Edgar Mitchell. Well, for a lot of reasons, right? What did you do with your life? Well, not really.
Went to the moon.
Yeah, exactly. But to have the opportunity of understanding what you and I know now, but having the opportunity to go out and look at the planet with a different lens, and be able to just observe back how that changes everything. Well, it changed everything for him. And he was also able to, in his own way of telepathy, consciousness, communication, and dipped his toe in that water from off planet.
Yeah.
Right? How incredible is it? So then he comes back and, you know what? I'm on a mission, man. It's about IONS. It's about this. It's just the free foundation and everything else. But yeah.
So we're actually recreating that awe effect for people in a study at UC San Diego, where they experience being in his shuttle and it turning around and seeing the Earth. So if you're in the San Diego area, you can actually experience that and be part of our study and see how that shifts your worldview.
I'm in Los Angeles. When is this going down? Where do you live?
Oh, okay. I'm in the Pacific Northwest, but IONS is in the San Francisco Bay Area.
That's right.
Yeah, I'll send you information about that AWE study, AWE study as well.
Absolutely incredible. What a great conversation tonight. And I cannot wait for our next one. Now, I know that we have IONS up and we have noetic.org. Is that the best way to reach out to you? And all of these studies and everything else that is going on, is that the repository?
That's the place. Yeah. We have all of our publications and our ongoing studies, and we have Connect IONS live webinars on Fridays. There's lots of ways to engage, but that is the best place to begin.
Thank you so much. And give my best to the entire crew and tell them I said hello. But what a perfect show for me tonight. And I just learned a lot. Thank you so much. And seriously, don't give up. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks a lot. All right. You too. Take care. Bye.
The best, the absolute best. Helané Wahbeh. What a perfect show tonight. Everybody now, you know what I'm going to say next. Today is my Friday. Yeah, it's my Friday. So I want everybody to just have a great, safe, fun, and amazing weekend. I'll see you right back here on Monday. But until then, all I've got is go Beckley Teppy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go Beckley Teppy.